is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. As the Prime Minister signs a new treaty with the Germans, we learned today that the UK will be paying contributions to the European Union under the PM's reset deal. Surely Keir Starmer wouldn't do that to us. Votes for 16-year-olds are in, plus a whole host of other rule changes that I think will make our democracy far less secure. And Tom Bower, friend of this show, joins me in my last segment to talk about the BBC in total chaos. And I'm going to ask him, how does he think 2 days in Windsor Castle between Donald Trump and the King will go? Before all of that, let's get the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nigel, thank you. The top stories. Diane Abbott has become the 5th Labour MP to be suspended by Sir Keir Starmer this week. A Labour Party spokesperson said Abbott has been suspended pending an investigation. The MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington has lost the whip a day after Rachel Maskell, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchcliffe and Neil Duncan Jordan. They were suspended from the party for repeatedly rebelling against the government on welfare. They'll now sit as independents in the Commons. Downing Street insists it's about stamping out disloyalty before Parliament's summer break. The White House has announced that the US president will travel to Britain later on in the year, with specific dates announced a short while ago. Donald Trump will visit Britain from the 17th to the 19th of September. He will also visit Scotland this month from the 25th to the 29th. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said that Mr. Trump says he's looking forward to meeting King Charles. The White House has also given a health update on the US president this evening. The White House telling reporters the president is suffering from venous insufficiency, which has caused some swelling.
In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition.
In some more breaking news this evening, a major incident has now been declared following a coach crash near Minehead in Somerset, with a number of casualties taken to hospital. The bus was bringing children back from a day trip. The coach operator said it was involved in a collision between Wedden Cross and Tibbacombe today. It's unclear how many people have been injured and how seriously. Police have told drivers to avoid the area. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, said she is receiving regular updates. Elsewhere, personal details of spies and special forces were included in a data leak that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was contained in the breach. Defence sources say details of MI6 spies, SAS and special forces personnel were included in the spreadsheet after they'd backed Afghans who'd applied to be brought to the UK. It comes after the personal information of thousands of people who applied for the Afghan relocations and assistance policy was released in error in February of 2022 by a defence official. And Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor have signed an historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, says today's treaty comes under the major challenges of our time. These, Merz says, includes Britain's exit from Europe, which he says he found deplorable. Known as the Kensington Treaty, this is the first agreement of its kind between the UK and Germany. It includes new school exchanges and a legal crackdown on smuggling gangs behind small boat crossings. Downing Street says the deal marks a significant step in tackling illegal migration across Europe. It comes as more than 21,000 people have crossed the English Channel this year, up 56% on last year. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. It's over to Farage.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening, everybody. So, Chancellor Merz of Germany has been in London today with the Prime Minister, and they've signed a new treaty. Yes, the Kensington Treaty. And what does it all mean? Well, it means that the Germans are going to help us by stopping illegal migrants storing their boats in Germany. I'm sure that's going to make just the most enormous difference to what's going on in the English Channel. We've even signed a sort of defence pact with Germany, which certainly is the first time we've done that since 1945. And Keir Starmer never seems more at home than when he's meeting fellow leaders from Europe, from the European Union, as he continues with what he calls his EU reset. But some research out overnight now suggesting that we're aligning with the European Union in 21 areas, whereas it was just 4 areas about a year ago, and that we now will have to start once again paying contributions to the European Union as part of the reset deal. I'm going to ask you at home, is this an all-out Brexit betrayal? Farage at gbnews.com. Love to get your thoughts. I'm joined in the studio by Anna Menon, regular, a friend of this programme, Director of UK and a Changing Europe, who put this report together. I'm also joined on this show for the first time with me by Theo Clark, former Conservative Member of Parliament for Stafford, and Kieran Andrieu, British Palestinian from Novara Media, and somebody with whom we have a very good, healthy debate on current affairs. Alan, this is your report. I've got the notes here, but tell us, what's actually happened?
Well, what the report shows is that basically, compared to last time, the UK is aligning more with the EU than it was last year, or particularly under the Conservatives. There's far more alignment now between us and them than there was in the past.
So this is on food standards?
On all sorts of different things and different forms of alignment. So at the summit in May, the two sides said that they would strike a deal on agriculture. That will involve what we call dynamic alignment, whereby we change our rules every time they change theirs in an automatic way.
Without a say?
Without a say. Well, there will be a voice, but there will be certainly no vote.
Yeah.
We won't get a vote on the measure. And then there's what we call voluntary alignment, where we've just decided to shadow what the EU is doing for various reasons. One, to make it easier for businesses so they don't have 2 rule books if they sell here and in the EU. And also, interestingly, to avoid disruptions to trade with Northern Ireland, because, of course, Northern Ireland under the protocol is bound by EU rules. And so if we diverge from EU rules, it brings in the danger of creating trade barriers between Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and so we're now having to sort of follow the Windsor framework as the whole of a country, as opposed to just the province of Northern Ireland, in effect.
Insofar as the government decides to do that, yes. I mean, what the government has said
it's
is...
our choice.
The government has said in some areas we might decide to align just to make it easier when it comes to Northern Ireland. There are still some areas of divergence. The most striking, I think, is financial services, where the government is moving away from what the EU is doing in terms of things like capital requirements, alternative investment mechanisms and things like that. So it's not all a simple story, but there is more alignment now than there has been since we left.
And more involvement of the European Court of Justice.
In those areas where we do dynamic alignment, where we say, OK, because the difference between dynamic alignment and everything else is dynamic alignment gives you full access to the EU market and then full access to ours. In those areas where we do that, then absolutely...
The arbiter is the ECJ.
The ultimate arbiter is the ECJ.
Which is something that Starmer said he wouldn't do. But, of course, his promise at the election was he wouldn't rejoin the single market, he wouldn't rejoin the customs union. But he's doing it. He's getting us very, very close to the EU in many areas.
He's getting us closer to the EU in particularly two areas, which is when it comes to emissions trading and when it comes to agriculture. I think actually what you'll find is the European Union isn't going to let him pick and choose the areas where he wants to get closer. So even if he does, and in the run-up to the election, Rachel Reeves was talking about doing something with chemicals, I think the European Union will say you don't get to pick and choose the bits of our market.
And are we really going to have to start paying a financial contribution?
Yes, but in many different ways. So on this, then there's talk about the EU saying if you're going to use our court, if you're going to sort of have this administrative agreement with us where you follow our laws, it's going to cost something because there's an administrative cost. In other areas, like university exchanges, for instance, there's a big debate to come between us and the EU about how much we pay compared to how much we get out. And of course, in May, the other thing they decided on was cooperation on security and defence. We want to participate in defence procurement schemes. The big debate there is how much we're going to have to pay to be able to play.
Theo, Brexit betrayal?
I'm afraid I think it is, Nigel. I mean, my former constituency voted significantly to leave, and that was certainly not what they were expecting, was that several years down the line we'd be repaying money back to the EU. And to be honest, I think the Prime Minister's being disingenuous. I think he's trying to unpick Brexit by the back door, and I think constituents who voted for that will be absolutely shocked. And to hear you say that, yes, the ECJ might have the ultimate decision, I mean, we are a sovereign country which has our own parliament, and what we're actually saying is that there will no longer be scrutiny by our own MPs.
On these areas?
On these areas, absolutely. I mean, that is absolutely the antithesis of what people voted for during the referendum.
I mean, Kieran, you know, I will give the Prime Minister credit for one thing. He did choose his words very carefully in the general election about what he wouldn't do. But, boy, he's taking us back closer to the Union very quickly.
I mean, first of all, I feel like I'm stuck in Groundhog Day, 2016 to 2019 edition, which largely was your fault, Nigel, and I don't want to go back there.
Well, no, we voted to leave, and Parliament didn't do it.
So let me ask you this.
Didn't do it.
Genuinely, with all respect, two clever people, what the hell were you expecting? Trade is brutal. Trade is absolutely brutal. Yeah. There is scarcely a trade deal in history in which the weaker party, the party that has less collective clout or less individual clout, dictates the norms, the legal frameworks, and the terms of the trade.
No, hang on.
So what on earth did you expect?
Hang on.
Of course the EU is going to...
Let's get a sense of perspective.
If you want to trade with the EU, there are going to be things you have to do.
Yes, but we also want to trade with the rest of the world.
Great.
And the rest of the world is growing, and the EU is contracting financially. The question I'm asking you is a political one.
Yeah.
You know, is this Starmer betraying Brexit, or do you think he's just keeping within lines of his election promises?
So I'll come to that in a sec. First of all, Nigel, there is no zero sum between trading with the world and trading with Europe. There can be zero sum if you're bound into terms that existed when we were still part of the EU. So I agree with you that leaving has opened up the space for trade deals outside of the EU.
Of course.
Right? You agree with that. But there is no zero sum. You have to trade with everybody.
Is the Prime Minister being straightforward and honest with the British people in terms of what he's doing?
Honestly, I don't know what Keir Starmer's motivations are. I think he's probably pro-European by nature. He's pro-EU by nature.
Yeah, I think he is.
I actually think this has marginal impact on people's everyday lives. And actually, I think, in a way, if there's one silver lining, Nigel, to you potentially winning in 2029 from where I'm standing from, if there's one silver lining to a Prime Minister Farage, it's that you can finally show us what your dream Brexit looks like. But I dare say, I suspect that you will run into the same kind of bureaucratic problems that you're hitting, say, in Warwickshire, but much, much larger.
Well, we could have left with no deal at all. We could have left with no WTO rules.
We could have left in a number of ways. So, I mean, this is the problem when we talk about what we voted for in 20. We voted to leave, and that was unspecified, and there are loads of ways to leave. So I think it's just getting a bit tiring when people say this isn't what we voted for, because we don't know what we voted for.
I mean, some of it's easy. Yeah. We voted to reduce the numbers of people coming into Britain, and it's gone through the roof. That is very, very clear and very obvious.
I mean, what some people would say to that is that parts of the Leave campaign said simply, we will control the numbers coming here. That is to say, we will be in charge.
That was Boris being a bit devious.
Yeah.
But apart from Boris, everyone said the numbers coming in, we'll have the ability to reduce, and it hasn't. So they're upset about that. But I wonder, I mean, you know, Kieran raises the broader trade points. You know, if we're aligning on agriculture, we're aligning on food standards and drink standards and other things, it does make a future trade deal with America very much more difficult.
I mean, it limits the things you can agree with other people, because you've said to the European Union, we will be sticking to your rules. But I'd say a couple of things. The European Union is still our largest trading partner by a distance. And it says in terms in the Labour manifesto, we will negotiate an agricultural deal with the European Union. I mean, it's there in black and white. They said this.
That bit they've kept within. It's the direction of travel that worries me, Thea.
Absolutely. And if I think back to the, you know, doorstep conversations I had as a Member of Parliament, the main reason people wanted to leave was because they were fed up of rule-taking from Brussels. And for me, this is going to be exactly the case. And yes, it might not be on every area of policy, but ultimately, if the rules are changed on particular things, say in regards to agriculture or other things, we would then have to change our laws in the UK. And that is as a direct response to something that we then don't have any control or say over. And I think that's the critical point.
And that's the worry. That's the worry, Kieran, that Brexiteers have is, you know, and of course, you know, Anand's explained very, very carefully the difference between dynamic alignment and other choices. Sure. But if you go on extending the areas of dynamic alignment and you argue it's for trade simplicity, fine, that's the argument that you make. Then you finish up with a debate that says, well, we're having to take rules without having a vote. You know, do we need to rejoin? And Starmer himself was, of course, one of the great proponents of a second referendum. Is that where this government's going, or do you think it's just too difficult for the Labour movement?
So much of the kind of spiritual case, if you like, for Brexit was about the sovereignty of Parliament, right? And now you have a sovereign British Parliament with a Labour government that I don't support, but that was indubitably elected with 175 majority, that, as Anne said, in its manifesto, referred to agricultural alignment and striking trade deals and so on. So in a way, you've got what you wanted. You just haven't got the political output that you hoped for.
It just doesn't feel like it.
I mean, we've had this conversation loads of times, Nigel. I mean, ultimately, Brexit is about trade-offs, and you weren't guilty of saying everything will be fantastic, we'll get our sovereignty back. You said this might cost us some money, but we'll be in charge. But there were lots of people on the Leave side who said trade will continue as it continued before and will be free. And I think, you know, if you're talking about Leave voters, not all of them realise that leaving the European Union might lead to higher food prices, which it has. OK, because of the barriers to trade in agriculture. And we could have reduced
tariffs on food for the rest of the world. We didn't do it. We didn't do it.
But all I'm saying is it's that trade-off, isn't it? And for some people, I mean, perfectly legitimately, they might think, I am willing to sacrifice a bit of control to have lower food prices. Other people will say, actually, that's a trade-off too far.
So while we got you here, before this segment ends, and we don't look at EU affairs very much anymore, but it was interesting that the Commission boss, Ursula von der Leyen, now pushing for a massive budget for the European Union, huge budget increase. That next period, 28 to 34, that she's negotiating, she wants a 2 trillion budget. What's happening across Europe in terms of pro-European parties, anti-EU parties in the political firmament?
It's a really mixed picture. I mean, there are some countries, like if you look at Scandinavia, where actually the Social Democrats are doing quite well. In other parts of Europe, as you know, the populist right are doing quite well. One of the noticeable things we've seen is the populist right is no longer talking about leaving the European Union. But this is, I mean, bear in mind with this debate, this is the opening shot in what is going to be a very long and horrible argument. It's going to take them 2 years to agree on this package. There's already pushback. I think the German government have already said we reject this budget. So it's going to be a nasty. It's going to be the usual, you know, you've been in the European Parliament, you know how these negotiations
go.
Well,
I'll tell you what, we just have our own arguments in Westminster. Thank goodness we're not part of that lot. And as ever, absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. So they've done it. They said they would, and they've done it. They're going to extend votes to 16-year-olds, but many other things proposed by Labour that I think will make our democracy far less secure than it is now. We'll debate all of that in a moment. And hey, what do you think at home? Do you think 16-year-olds should get the vote?
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I asked you, is this a Brexit betrayal? Steve says, Starmer is hell-bent on taking us back fully into the EU. He's a traitor to the British people. That's quite strong. Kim says, we don't know what form of Brexit we voted for, but we certainly didn't vote not to use the freedoms given by it and hand over contributions for nothing. And David finally says Starmer appears to be taking us back into Europe by stealth. No doubt that would suit the EU. Remember, we had a trade deficit with the EU before. I know, a massive trade deficit, and Kieran and I could argue that until the cows come in, but we're not going to, because Labour has published a paper today, and they will give votes to people aged 16 and above, and that will count for general elections, it'll count for local elections, all forms of election. I have to say, I've always taken the view that if you can vote in an election, you should be eligible to be a candidate in that election too. To me, that is absolute logic. Do we want 16-year-olds sitting in Parliament? I don't think so. So I've always been opposed to reduction of the voting age on that basis. Now, there might be an irony in it, which is, whilst Labour may well think, well, this is us, this is ours, we're going to have these voters. Actually, increasingly, I'm quite popular with the 16 and 17-year-olds as well. So it could actually come back to bite the Labour Party. What is for certain is that it will, on current form, hurt the Conservative Party disproportionately, quite badly. But my other worry, you know, when Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, says today, you know, we're going to protect our elections from abuse, we will strengthen the foundations of our society for the future. Well, the ID requirements, which you remember were brought in for the last general election for the first time, meaning you had to show photo ID when you went to vote. I thought that was perfectly sensible and reasonable. Most grown-up countries do that. They're changing the rules on this to say a bank card will do. Well, come on, you can't use a bank card for any form of ID anywhere. That is a loosening of the rules. My other big complaint about this is it doesn't mention postal voting. And if there is an area where there is genuine concern about abuse of the electoral system, it is with voting, postal voting, particularly in some of our inner cities. So, look, you know, I engage every day with 16 and 17-year-olds on TikTok and other mediums. You know, I want them to be interested in current affairs. I just don't believe they should be eligible to vote. But with a massive Labour majority, it is going to happen. What's your take on this?
Well, I agree with you, Nigel, and I totally take your point about not being able to stand for election, but having the vote is completely crazy. I mean, I think for me, I don't think it's right that we should be giving the votes to 16-year-olds for a number of reasons. I mean, firstly, you can't buy an alcoholic drink, you can't go to war, and you can't stand for election. So we've already decided on other parts that you're not the right age to be making these incredibly important decisions. But also, I think, come on, this is a very cynical attempt by the government, really, to try and attract more of their voter demographic, because they think they're going to get more votes the next election.
What was interesting, ITV obviously saw this coming. because they conducted a big poll of 16 and 17-year-olds, and 50% of them said, no, we shouldn't have the vote, we're not ready.
Well, there you go. And we're talking about a relatively small proportion of the British public, but I think we have to see this for what this is. This is the Prime Minister thinking, I want to hold on to my majority, it's not going well 1 year into the government, and I want to get access to more people who are going to vote for us at the next election.
And I have a worry about this. Well, firstly, Kieran, just get your broad thoughts on this.
I mean, I don't have particularly strong feelings about this, but what I would say is, on that point... Yeah, it's the first time for everything. But on that point, Theo, if it's the case that Keir Starmer is doing this to kind of bottom out his vote as he loses it from other parts, other tranches of the electorate, I'm not sure that that's a very good strategy. I think we were talking earlier about the fact that it will probably increase the vote share for people who want to vote Green. Yep. You can be fairly confident of that.
Yep.
It will probably, if the Sultana Corbyn party does get off the ground...
Well, that was about the worst launch I've seen in recent history from the party, isn't it true, Nigel?
If it gets off the ground, you could expect that it would also swallow up some votes there. And as you alluded to a minute ago, Nigel, it's not cut and dry that reform won't also benefit.
No, I think I think reform would. But here's my worry. My worry is they're going to make politics compulsory at school. You have to stay in education now to the age of 18 for reasons I've never understood at all. This now, the way that politics is taught, as it's going to be a compulsory subject, the fact there are so many members of a teaching profession that are skewed way to the left of centre, this now puts a serious burden on the education system, Theo, to teach critical thinking. And a teacher can say, look, I'm a Labour voter, but hey, these are the arguments, make your own mind up. The education system could play a major factor here.
Absolutely. And the other point you made, which is really important that we're not discussing, is this change that they're making in the Elections Act on who can vote. I mean, I think it's crazy to think that you can turn up at the voting booth and just provide your bank card, which, by the way, doesn't even have a photograph on it. So how do we even know? No. And we've seen with Tower Hamlets and other constituencies that there's been major problems with voting.
That was mostly postal. That was mostly postal voting. You know, Luther Rahman, was disqualified, got a sentence for postal voting. And actually, Kieran, I'm going to come back to this, we know in certain communities that postal voting has been heavily abused. We've had court case after court case. Well, I just don't understand. I mean, to me, the French have the best system. The French system, you can get a postal vote or a proxy if you're 97 in a wheelchair, if you're working overseas. But otherwise, you have to turn up on a Sunday. It's a ballot paper. They're counted by hand. They get results within about 4 hours. There's never any argument. Isn't that a better thing to do?
Again, I have an informed lack of strong view on this. And when I say informed, I mean this. This is virtually a non-issue in British politics.
What, the postal voting?
It doesn't come up on the doorstep, I'll give you that.
It is so marginal. It's so unbelievably marginal. And in a way, this is a very healthy encapsulation, but of what GBNews is often about. Not always, but often about. Wind people up about things that are ultimately extremely marginal and that have statistical...
I could not disagree more.
I'm sure, but
I have
totally statistically insignificant.
Seen elections totally skewed by postal voting.
I agree.
They have tightened the rules up slightly. I saw an election in Peterborough where I saw somebody walking into a polling station with 1,000 ballot papers in a supermarket bag.
Yeah, OK.
I saw an election count where one of the parties...
Why didn't you flag it?
Well, I did my best. We tried through law.
Because, Nigel, I'll just say this. I've sat in many election counts. I was an election agent before I went and worked in Tower Hamlets, by the way. And I would say, honestly, I found the... set up in those places to be extremely efficient.
Plenty of people have gone to prison.
They will come down on you like a ton of bricks. When I was an election agent, we had to dot every I, cross every T. I'm surprised that you didn't.
Polling station.
But why didn't you raise?
I've been raising postal voting fears for 20 years.
But when you saw someone with 1,000 votes,
no, we did everything we could.
And they weren't interested.
It was within the law. It was within the law.
I struggle to believe
they have tightened up since then.
I really struggle to believe
They've now put a limit of 5.
In any case, statistically, it's an incredibly marginal issue in British politics.
No,
and it's weaponised.
I don't agree.
Given the same...
And it affects democracy, which is ultimately so important.
I don't agree.
I mean,
and
you have so many marginal seats now.
If someone's voting 3 weeks before the election, not everybody's making a decision with the same level of information. That's my
and
feeling
things
on it.
change in election campaigns, as we all know, Nigel.
They certainly do, for good and bad.
Absolutely.
In a moment, let's discuss the story that really has been dominating the news this week. It is, of course, the Afghan leaks, the cover-ups, the super injunctions, and now, wait for it, the payouts, which could total, we're told, up to £1 billion. Are we really prepared to put up with this?
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Lots of hot, strong sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. A few showers are possible in Sicily and inland over Turkey. We may just see 1 or 2 showers. Most of the coast here dry and sunny. Much of the Greek islands also dry, fine and sunny. 1 or 2 showers through the spine of Italy. But again, the coast's dry and fine. Northern parts of Spain may see a bit more cloud and a few showers. Quite a brisk wind blowing over the Canaries, but it's going to be hot in Tenerife. Temperatures just dipping a little bit here into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours, it's going to stay warm and humid for many of us. An uncomfortable night for sleeping. Showers in the north and west, but drier towards the southeast. We've got low pressure moving slowly northeastwards, swinging some weather fronts into the west. That's what's causing the cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain into Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales overnight. Elsewhere, mostly dry, areas of cloud, some low cloud and mistiness around southern and western coasts, and a muggy night to come wherever you are. Temperatures staying generally up around 15 to 18 Celsius. That gets us off to a warm start to Friday, but a mixed start depending on where you are across the United Kingdom. We've got areas of cloud and showery rain pushing into eastern Scotland, reaching Orkney, but not quite Shetland at this time. Western Scotland brightening up after earlier rain, and there will be further showers following into Northern Ireland, but perhaps an element of brightness there for a few hours during the early morning period. Wales and Western England, likewise, band of cloud and some showery rain moving through, but the rain not too heavy towards the southwest. Ahead of this, the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, seeing a hot and humid day. Temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s, touching 30 to 32 Celsius in some of the hotter parts of East Anglia and the southeast. Of course, that heat and humidity with low pressure nearby combining to give some thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England later in the day. And there'll also be further showers into the northwest, but some even livelier showers and thunderstorms developing on Friday night and into Saturday, emanating from France, pushing northwards across central and eastern parts of the UK. Some particularly heavy rain moving through northern England and southern Scotland, followed by further showers and thunderstorms, initially from the south and then into Sunday from the west. So, a lot of rain to come.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We all know that we owed a debt to quite a few people in Afghanistan, brave people who fought with us, who acted as interpreters. But we also know that as a result of the leaks, not only are we taking in people who would not ever qualify under those criteria, a point that John Healey, the Defence Secretary, made very clear yesterday, so we have to be careful about who comes in to the country. But now, because of data breaches, etc., we're in danger of being sued, something for up to perhaps £1 billion. And there are plenty of legal firms jumping on this. I wonder what dimension in all of this the European Convention of Human Rights is playing. I'm joined by a friend of the programme, Ivan Sampson, immigration lawyer, down the line. Ivan, it all seems to have happened very quickly and to be rather unsavoury that legal firms are advertising their wares in the way that they are.
Yes, I mean, look, they're entitled to advertise under SRA rules and Bar Council rules, but it must be done in an ethical manner. The duty of a lawyer always is to act in the best interest of clients and not to mislead clients. I've seen some law firms, perhaps, I think you've read in the Daily Mail today, promising £250,000. I'm not sure it's Daily Mail, but it was a newspaper, an online publication offering £250,000. Now, that's you can't really quantify that till you read the particular facts of any case.
Yeah. Well, that probably does break the ethical guidelines. But, Ivan, is it our old friend, the European Convention on Human Rights, that will be used in many of these cases? Or is it simply about data breaches?
It can be. Look, breach of statutory duty, that's what we're talking about. There's very little defence to that. You can have some contributing factors of the claimants, but if you breached data protection, you either breached it or you didn't. So there's very little defence. So there'll be a lot of lawyers doing on a no-win, no-fee basis because of that. So there'll be conditional fee agreements where then the lawyers will get inflated legal fees on that no-win, no-fees. So then there's also the common law potential claims for misuse of private information and potentially negligence claims as well. So there's a raft of things that lawyers can do to against the government.
Yeah. And some have said this could go on for a decade.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember, there was war crimes or alleged war crimes by British troops, and that's still going on today. So Afghans and Iraqis are making claims against the Ministry of Defence for what they said was breach of the United Nations Convention by British soldiers, and that's still going on now. So I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think this could roll on for many, many, many years.
Ivan, thanks for coming on and thoroughly depressing me and the entire audience. Thank you. It's a difficult one, Kieran, isn't it? We have done wrong. The leak. I mean, although we did learn yesterday that actually the Taliban had the list anyway, and we hadn't particularly endangered lives, and a complex situation, people that we owed a debt to, many others that we don't. But do we really, I mean, is it really acceptable to British taxpayers? We could have to shell out £1 billion.
I mean, first of all, I want to emphasise this. This happened under the Tories, right? And it's important to say that.
Oh, with the super injunction and all of it.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But what didn't happen under the Tories, to be fair to them, was, sorry to go back 24 years, but the invasion in the first place. And guys, I mean, I've never been in elected politics. I've never been an elected official. You both have or are in your case, Nigel. Please, next time you're asked to join a foreign military adventure...
I won't be doing it in a hurry, believe you me.
Because, look, I mean, the thing that this really underscores, and of course there's loads of minutiae, and I'm happy to get into that, what this really underscores is that when you invade other people's countries, bomb other people's countries, you don't actually put your own national interest first in doing that. Largely, it's politicians putting their own political careers first, and what it results in is massive, massive people displacement. And in the end, people, I mean, they can't disappear, they can't evaporate, they're not incorporeal. They end up in places like Europe, and I have no problem with that, personally, but I believe you do, and perhaps you do or don't, Theo, and I'm sure a lot of your voters do. But let's stop bombing countries.
When I think, no, look, I agree with that point. And had anyone even thought about history, at the height of the British Empire, twice we got smashed in Afghanistan, all right? It's almost unconquerable. The Soviets learnt that before, etc. Had this broken when the Conservatives were still in power, it would have brought the government down. Had this broken before the last election, they might not have won a single MP seat. This is a shameful episode.
Well, I completely agree, Nigel. I mean, it's a complete mess. And I was actually a sitting MP at the time, but I obviously had no idea about any of this until the last few days of news. And I think, firstly, it's shocking what's happened. I think it's shocking that the Defence Secretary couldn't confirm that the person responsible for the data breach has even lost their job.
Which is beyond belief.
I thought that would be the very first thing that I would do, is to fire the person who's responsible for putting all these lives in danger in the first place. And also, I think there's the second point about the lack of parliamentary scrutiny. I mean, I was a member of Parliament. I remember the Arab scheme. It was in the summer. I remember the recovery of all these people coming back to the UK, and I had none of this information at the time. So how on earth can we have zero scrutiny?
And the Speaker of Parliament told, don't let any MP discuss the issue. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's silencing democracy.
Just also, separate to what I was saying a second ago, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but can I read you a quote? And I want to see if you can guess who it's by. I'm going to cover my note.
We're not playing trick games, but very quickly.
We must protect, quote, we must protect those brave Afghans who helped us and their families by settling them in the UK. Simple, no ifs, no buts.
Absolutely right.
Who said it?
Well, I could have said it, because I said it at the start of this segment.
It was actually Richard Tice.
Yeah. No, there were brave people we owed a debt to. No question about that. That is unarguable. What is also unarguable, as John Healey pointed out, is thousands of other people tried to use this as an excuse. I'm going to move on, if I may. One last quick segment here. What the Farage moment is, the Public Accounts Committee have told us that HMRC are unsure how many billionaires pay tax. They don't know how many billionaires are in the country. They rely, I think, on the Sunday Times rich list to find out who's here. But this is all part of a much bigger debate. Neil Kinnock was very explicit the other week. It's growing within the Labour Party, the idea of a wealth tax. If you have assets that are worth more than 10 million, although if you don't know how many billionaires there are, how would you judge what people's assets were worth? But this idea of a wealth tax, I think, is lunacy. What say you?
I mean, obviously, I'm in favour of it. I don't expect...
Why?
Well,
why?
I don't expect you to be in favour of it.
Tell me why.
I'll tell you why in a sec. I don't, and I've got very good reasons, so I hope you'll let me air them. I don't expect you to be in favour, Nigel, because your political party is bankrolled by billionaires, or a large proportion...
Well, let me know who they are. I'd be delighted.
And so is GBNews, for that matter. Come on, you know that. You know that.
The Labour Party
it would be turkeys voting for Christmas for you to support a wealth tax, because you're backed by billionaires.
What is the benefit?
Right. Do you know... OK, so annual 2% tax on assets over 10 million would raise probably about 24 billion quid a year. If you did it recurring, it would be 24 billion quid a year. Do you know how many people that affects? Do you know how many people that affects?
Huge numbers, and I'll tell you why.
Really? Have a guess.
Job losses.
Have a guess.
Job losses.
No. We'll come to that in a minute. Talking about productivity, that's a different argument.
10,000, 20,000?
0.04% of the population.
And what if they all leave?
And let me also just say this.
What if they all leave?
Hold on. Let me just also say this. We'll come to leaving in a sec, because I want data. I don't just want these emotional arguments all the time with you.
I'll give you data.
Let me just say one thing.
26,000 rich people have left in the last 2 years.
Polling. 70 to 80%.
Of course.
70 to 80% of the public are in favour of it. Now, you mentioned millionaires and billionaires flying.
Hang on. If you say to people, should people who earn millions of pounds a year pay more tax, they say yes. If you knock on the doorsteps in Stoke-on-Trent, it's not in the top 20. Quick thought from you, Theo, on this. I mean, it's madness, isn't it?
I completely agree. And I totally disagree with everything you just said. I mean, what the top 1% of earners in the UK are paying 29% of our income tax. So what does that actually mean? That is money being spent on public services.
It's not money being spent on our
hospitals. It's being spent on our schools. And we live in a global economy. These people are just going to leave.
Okay.
Right?
Can I just quickly talk to you about
one last? You've got 30 seconds left.
OK, so Norway is always the example that's given, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, they'll just leave because look at Norway. Yeah. There are 200... In 2022, which is where all the data's from, there were 236,000 millionaires and billionaires. Do you know how many left?
I know 26,000 left.
30 millionaires and billionaires left.
I'm afraid...
You would have to times that by 15 for it to offset the amount you get.
Kieran, these arguments do not understand human nature and behaviour. And English-speaking people can go wherever they want.
And the bottom line is...
Thank you to my panel. We'll return to this, because I think this is a coming issue and debate in British politics. In a moment, our friend Tom Bower joins us here in the studio to give us his thoughts on the BBC. Should the Director-General survive? Should even the licence fee get renewed next time round? Also keen to get his thoughts. 2 days, alone together in Windsor Castle. Donald Trump and the King. How's that going to go?
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Not a day goes by without a story of the BBC not being in chaos. One particular item that perhaps said an awful lot about the problem of the BBC was the documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone, presented by a 13-year-old. Turned out later that the boy's father was a minister in the Hamas-run government. That's led to a huge furore. Here was Deborah Turness in the last 24 hours, head of news at the BBC, defending that position.
I think it's really important that we are clear that Abdullah's father was a deputy agriculture minister and therefore, was a member of the Hamas-run government, which is different to being part of the military wing of Hamas.
So there we are. It's all OK then, isn't it, Tom Bauer, journalist, author and former BBC man? I mean, there's that, there's Tim Davies, we could go on. But that clip is very instructive.
Well, it's very instructive because it shows how ignorant she is and why the BBC is institutionally anti-Semitic. Because, Nigel, what she showed is, ever since October invasion by the Hamas, the BBC has been running Hamas footage every night saying this is true. They've always accepted every night the Hamas point of view. And now we know why. It's because Deborah Turness, the head of news, thinks that Hamas somehow isn't a terrorist organisation.
Cuddly, lovely people.
Cuddly people on the civilian side. Yeah. Let me just give you an example of what it means to your viewers. What it means is, in 1945, the viewer should have thought that Adolf Hitler, being a civilian, he's OK, but the nasty men are the ones in uniform, rather than thinking they're all together, which of course Hamas is. And Hamas is a terrorist organisation dedicated to the destruction of Israel, the murder of 8 million Jews, and she says, but if we're in the civilian part of Hamas, in a department agriculture, you're okay. That is why BBC News and the BBC altogether is in chaos, crisis, and the only way to cure it is for Tim Davie to be fired.
Well,
because
I mean,
he's in control.
I mean, what happened at Glastonbury was just beyond...
And nothing has happened since.
But it was predictable as well.
Totally.
It was totally predictable.
And he was there for 5 hours after it happened and let that video stay on air.
So if Tim Davie goes... Fine, that's one person.
No.
How do you change the culture of the BBC?
Well, you've got to
because that's what you're arguing.
Oh, absolutely. There's got to be a whole new raft of people brought in. The real problem with the BBC is this, that everything depends on the chairman, Shamil Shah. Now, what's interesting is that Shah said originally that there's a huge problem in the BBC and we've got to solve it. But after the Glastonbury thing, he said he thought that Tim Davie had handled it well. So he's been bought off. Lisa Nandy said heads must roll.
Yes,
suddenly she says not. They've all been nobbled. It's like the Afghan thing is another establishment cover-up. But this time, the BBC is far too important. It is facing an existential question under Tim Davie's leadership.
But Tom, it isn't going to change much, is it?
Well, if it doesn't, then it's the end of the BBC, because it cannot continue with these people who are ignorant and incapable of understanding their own limitations. That is the real problem. And so, therefore, it needs a whole new structure, new management of people in to cure the problem.
Ignorant, there we are. Tom, so many royal stories around. Quick picture of Harry recreating his mother's time with, the Halo Trust, going into the minefield. What's Meghan not with him? What's that all about?
It's a stunt. Harry is desperate. Harry is desperate to get back to England. Harry is desperate to distance himself from the bitter feuds of his wife. And in any case, she's excluded him from her business things.
Is there sort of a slow breakup happening here?
Well, I don't think he'll ever want to leave California because he won't want to leave his children. But he's desperate for an identity. And what he really fears is that when the king, God forbid, dies, that his brother, Prince William, is going to banish him from Britain. And therefore he can't get back at all. And so somehow he's trying to ingratiate himself. But he's advised by people, Californian advisors, who don't understand Britain. So they let the Mail do the photographs. They think it's clever for him to recreate something that Diana did more than 25 years ago. It's all falling flat. Everyone knows.
Yeah, it is. Completely. By the way, I've got a BBC comment to read to you. A spokesperson for the broadcaster said Deborah Turness was answering a question about how we describe the father of the narrator in our war zone film. She did not imply that Hamas are not a single terrorist organisation.
Well, that came after she said it. That's what you call trying to bolt the door after the horse has fled.
Now, what fascinates me is Macron comes, there's an open-top carriage ride with the King through Windsor. There's an address to both houses of Parliament. He's allowed to lecture us on what fools we are to have voted for independence from the European Union. And Donald Trump's coming. Our most important ally in the world, whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant. And he's not going to be able to speak to both houses of Parliament. There'll be no open-top carriage rides. He's going to be holed up in Windsor for 2 whole nights and the best part of 3 days with the King. I fear we're downgrading the American president compared to the way we treated the French president. But I also wonder, on a personal basis, how the two of them are going to get on.
Well, I think they'll get on very well, because I think Charles is fascinated probably by Trump, as we all are. And Trump is a great admirer of the royal family.
Certainly is.
And I think he will be very interested to actually develop a rapport. And I'm sure they're going to arrange a lot of things for him to do. Look, we need Trump to settle the tariff issues on steel and all the rest of it. We need to settle the military alliance and everything. I think Charles will be a terrific ambassador for Britain.
Interesting.
And I think that it'll work very well. And I think he wants to make it work well. I think the soft power of the royal family... You've got to remember, when Prince William met Trump in Paris, Trump was really impressed.
He was.
And he really admires Britain through the royal family.
And he loves the royal family.
And rightly so.
And he talks about the royal family.
Well, you know.
One hell of a lot. And it fascinates him.
And they're going to make sure he has a great time. Good. I think that's it. And that's that's very important. Isn't Starmer lucky to have Prince Charles, King Charles?
I think Starmer's lucky to have King Charles. I think Starmer's also lucky to have Trump, because he's got an American president who's very pro-British. And we've won some great concessions compared to others.
And it's been a lot to do with the British special ambassador, not Peter Mandelson, but the producer of The Apprentice, Burnett, who has been the man who's really Yeah, all
and you
between
don't
them.
read about him very
You don't,
much.
But he's the man who says to Trump,
Burnett's
Burnett is the motive behind
producer of
it.
The Apprentice, but also was with 3 Para in the Falklands
Exactly.
War. So an interesting
great
character.
patriot and a great friend of Trump, and he is the man who makes it all happen.
Tom, as ever, fascinating. Now, coming up next on State of the Nation is, of course, Alex Armstrong. Alex, what will you be debating, discussing with the audience and panel tonight?
What a day, hey, Nigel, for politics. We're going to be asking, and this has got me asking a lot of questions today, is Labour gerrymandering? Well, it's going to be a big one. We're going to reveal some data that suggests that might actually be true. The audience are going to want to stay tuned, because trust me, I don't think they've heard the consequences of this potential gerrymandering. We'll also be looking at whether or not this deal that was done with the Pakistani airline PIA to bring them with the government to deport. Well, would it affect deportations? That's what we want to know. We've got Rochdale's MP coming on here, so he's going to give us his take on that. Lots to talk about there. Is Labour on the brink of civil war? Diane Abbott's gone. Suspended.
Diane Abbott's gone again. Yeah. Again. There we are. All that coming up over the course of the next hour. I'm back with you next week. I want to know, what's the weather going to be like? Please, Aidan McGibbon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours, it's going to stay warm and humid for many of us. An uncomfortable night for sleeping. Showers in the north and west, but drier towards the southeast. We've got low pressure moving slowly northeastwards, swinging some weather fronts into the west. That's what's causing the cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain into Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales overnight. Elsewhere, mostly dry, areas of cloud, some low cloud and mistiness around southern and western coasts, and a muggy night to come wherever you are. Temperatures staying generally up around 15 to 18 Celsius. That gets us off to a warm start to Friday, but a mixed start depending on where you are across the United Kingdom. We've got areas of cloud and showery rain pushing into eastern Scotland, reaching Orkney, but not quite Shetland at this time. Western Scotland brightening up after earlier rain, and there will be further showers following into Northern Ireland, but perhaps an element of brightness there for a few hours during the early morning period. Wales and Western England, likewise, a band of cloud and some showery rain moving through, but the rain not too heavy towards the southwest. Ahead of this, the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, seeing a hot and humid day. Temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s, touching 30 to 32 Celsius in some of the hotter parts of East Anglia and the southeast. Of course, that heat and humidity with low pressure nearby combining to give some thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England later in the day. And there'll also be further showers into the northwest, but some even livelier showers and thunderstorms developing on Friday night and into Saturday, emanating from France, pushing northwards across central and eastern parts of the UK. Some particularly heavy rain moving through northern England and southern Scotland, followed by further showers and thunderstorms, initially from the south and then into Sunday from the west. So, a lot of rain to come.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is, of course, State of the Nation. Coming up tonight, is the Labour Party moving the goalpost? Is the government gerrymandering? Just as it's flailing in the national polls? Well, you'll find out a